Seeing as I've somehow made a couple of videos now not centered on Shyamalan, I'm starting to feel some withdrawal. But no worry, he thankfully came out with a new movie last summer. M. Night Shyamalan's The Beach That Makes You Old. I'd like to keep this shorter, just to give my thoughts and not go on for 20 to 30 minutes. Let's see how that turns out. Old, written and directed by Shyamalan himself, is about a group of people who go to a hidden beach that rapidly ages them, reducing their entire lifespan into a single day. The Beach Makes You Old. The movie is based on a comic book, or graphic novel if you want to be fancy, by the name of Sandcastle. It released to mixed reviews. This is not new for a Shyamalan film, but at least to me, this movie seemed especially polarizing to viewers. The people that didn't like it really didn't like it. The movie was either great or complete shit. And when those initial reactions came in, I knew I, as the resident Shyamalan simp, was in for a treat. I am firmly in the old is good camp, but I do have my issues with it too. I probably like it more than Glass, which I also thought was better than it was given credit for, but it's not quite on the level of something like Split for me. I'll keep this video spoiler free, so maybe it can help you inform your decision in watching this if you haven't. But let's just start going through this, starting with what I liked. In any technical sense, this movie is very well done, which is to be expected from a film like this. The cinematography stand out to me once again. Mike Eulakis, who worked with Shyamalan on Split and Glass, returns, and he seems to always hit it out of the park. This might be one of the aspects of the film that split viewers. The cinematography can get, well, let's say weird. A lot of big swings, but in this department, I feel like all the swings hit. The camera work seems to underline the passage of time. It has a floaty quality to it at times. A friend described it as giving the movie a Lynchian, dreamlike quality. And that's a good way to put it, so I'll just steal his thoughts.
Yoink! Bullshit.
The presentation is overall very good. Old is an effective thriller and mystery. In general, I like the reveal of information, especially when we get our first reveals of the effects of the beach. Shyamalan withholds from showing us the aged up children for a long time, which builds up nicely. It's a classic situation where characters are trapped and need to figure a way out, while butting heads and playing off of each other, trying and failing in different methods. In this respect, the film works wonderfully. The escalation feels earned, and one situation leads to another in a sensible way. The movie dips its toes into horror. There isn't as much body horror as you'd expect from a film like this, but the amount that we get works very well. There's a sequence involving a pregnancy in which all these elements come together perfectly. The whole movie has this uneasy feeling to it, which is there from the beginning, but really kicks in when we get to the beach. Most of the emotional beats work for me too. The family dynamic in the center of this works and is a good window into the situation, as well as thematically tying a lot of these elements together, even if at times it's very on the nose. Our leads, Gal Garcia Bernal and Vicky Krieps, give interesting performances. They can feel a bit off at times, but I believe them as characters. From the rest of the cast, the standout performance comes from Rufus Sewell. The Hereditary's own Alex Wolff does a good job too. And, what I like in every Shyamalan movie, Old is a tight package. It's 1 hour, 48 minutes. Other than towards the end, every piece feels like it's meant to be there. Even if I don't agree with every artistic choice, which I'll get into, the choices feel purposeful, and Shyamalan still isn't afraid to take chances. It's definitely not boring or cookie cutter. You can tell that a lot of passion and good vision went into the film. These are the elements of the film that I don't think are outright bad, are understandable creative decisions that I may or may not agree with, or things that might work for some, even most, but I understand if they make you raise an eyebrow. More of a gray zone between the bad and the good. And while I just complimented some of the acting, a lot of it is a bit of a question mark. The child actors aren't necessarily bad, but there's also no Haley Joel Osment types here. And a lot of it is up to characterization. 6-year-olds are going to be cringe and weird, so that is very accurate, but there are certain moments that can take me out of the movie a little. Some of the dialogue here would be hard for an adult to deliver naturally, so at times the kids are gonna struggle. You do get used to people feeling a bit off at times. It's mostly in the beginning where you have to acclimate to it, but I can't deny that a lot of the dialogue and delivery in this movie wouldn't be weird. Whether you believe it or it works for you is subjective. For the most part, I still believe in these people as characters, even if they do like to blurt out subtext out loud every now and again.
You're always thinking about the future.
For transparency, I haven't read the original comic book fully, just bits and pieces, and I've read up on some of the changes that the movie makes. A big one, from where a lot of the issues and the many strengths of the movie stem from, is the genre switch into straight-up thriller. The graphic novel is a mystery sci-fi romp, but especially with its ending and purpose, seems to be more existential in nature. I may be off, but the comic book doesn't seem as clear-cut in this sense. Not to say that the movie completely loses those elements. It doesn't. Some of them take a bit of a backseat to a tight thriller thriller film, which I think is good. Shyamalan excels at thrillers, and as a thriller, this movie overwhelmingly works. Changes need to be made when you adapt, and most of them I don't mind. Some, I think, as far as I know, are for the better, as far as making a good movie is concerned. But there are some that are questionable. One element involves Charles, as played by Rufus Sewell. I praised his performance, and I think he is great, as is his character, but there's a certain reveal that is changed from the graphic novel that doesn't really click for me. It also plays into some problematic tropes about mentally ill people that seem to come up in a lot of Shyamalan movies over and over. I don't think the change was necessary, and while it doesn't ruin the character, I do think the addition of it wasn't for the better. There's also changes like the mysterious man who's already at the beach being a rapper called Mid-Sized Sedan. I don't have anything against the actor or the character. In fact, I enjoy the character, and I think Aaron Pierre did a great job, but him being a rapper named Mid-Sized Sedan is silly. I don't know why this change was made. It doesn't seem to lead to much, but well, there it is.
Oh my god! That's Mid-Sized Sedan!
And while the movie switches up the child actors to age them up, they don't do this for the adult characters. This is fine, as the old age makeup and effects are very good. I actually can't even tell how some of this was done. It's very convincing, but having actual old actors portray the older versions could have been more effective. I can't say this for sure, and maybe the benefits of getting to have the same actor portray the character from beginning to end outweigh the benefits of switching them up. It's a creative decision that I'm sure they went over many a times, and perhaps this was the right one. One thing is that while the actors end up looking old, their voice doesn't seem to change that much. They still sound like youngish people who just look old. This is one element where I think this out there movie could have gone further, and that attention to detail would have added to it. And as a minor nitpick, while I do love Shyamalan's style of playing with sound, not really showing much, there are a couple of parts where that doesn't necessarily work for his advantage here. For the kind of premise that this is, leaning a bit more into the horror could have benefited. The movie could have shown a bit more, although, as it is, it's probably about as far as you can go with a PG-13 nowadays. Controversy. There are many elements of this movie that people didn't like, and there's really only one that I would have to 100% agree with, and that's the ending. I'll try to talk about it as much as I can without spoiling it. The big problem for me is that it explains everything. The mechanics of the beach are more or less explained. I don't mind the characters hypothesizing amongst themselves, but the ending pushes this a bit too far in my opinion. But it's not even them explaining the beach that is the problem. That part isn't as explicit, it's everything surrounding it. I don't mind the twist. Surprise, surprise. This movie has a twist. It makes sense and is very heavily foreshadowed. I just think the movie could have done without the explicit reveal of what's going on. In fact, for a lot of it, I don't really mind the mechanics of what happens on paper. From a story point of view, this is fine. It's the fact that everything is so explicitly shown and explained, not really leaving room for interpretation.
Oh, I see. Then everything is wrapped up in a neat little package.
I could have gleaned a lot of this information without them then explaining everything to me at the end, and I think the movie could have been better off for it. I don't even mind that the ending is changed from the comic book. I like the comic book ending, but I think this one is fitting for this type of movie. It's just the execution and ending it so clean. This is where the genre change into a thriller kind of starts hurting the film. You want the explanation in a thriller. You want the satisfying resolution of finding out exactly what happened, who was behind it, and why. But I can't see a way that this particular story could have done all that without losing a lot of punch and feeling kind of watered down at the end. This may be the first time I'm saying this about a Shyamalan film, but they could have cut a lot of this ending out. There were like 2 or 3 points where I thought we're wrapping it up now, that this is gonna be the final shot of the movie, but it just keeps going. Time-wise, it's not even that much, maybe like 5 minutes. 10 at best, but it coming at the end like that makes it feel like more. And it's good for Shyamalan to have this figured out like this, for the purposes of writing. Nolan should know whether the top keeps spinning or not. Lynch should know, well, he should know what the fuck is happening in half of his movies, but they shouldn't tell us. The ending of Inception is good because it doesn't show us. David Lynch movies rock partly because I have no idea what the fuck I'm watching. I wish Shyamalan would have resisted the urge to make things so explicit, embrace the strange nature of this story, let the internet run wild with all the clues of what happened. I think the movie would have been far stronger and would have probably generated even more discussion than it did. I ended up talking a lot more about the stuff that didn't work, or I didn't like, than I talked about all the stuff that I did like. I don't want that fact to paint the wrong picture for you. I really like this movie. It's a mixed bag, but overwhelmingly good. There's a lot more stuff in this to like than to dislike, as far as I'm concerned. It's just that it's more concise to say what works than what doesn't. And even the questionable parts are still part of why I love Shyamalan's movies so much, and why he is my favorite director. I've probably repeated this 78 times in all of my videos, but I love big swings. A big swing and a miss is still far more compelling than a safe bet that's sort of okay. And I don't think Old is a miss. Most of the big swings it hits hard, but not everything comes perfectly together. And whether you end up liking this or not, it's absolutely worth a watch, if at least once. You may not love it, but it's not gonna leave you bored. If I ever care enough to tier list Shyamalan's films, I could tell you exactly where this fits in. But for now, I'd say it's somewhere between Split and Glass. It's more science than it is The Last Airbender, that's for sure, and it's by no means a bad movie. A very divisive one, but I'm firmly of the opinion that M. Night Shyamalan's Shouldn't Have Gone to the Beach That Makes You Old is a really good film. But what do you think? I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts, especially seeing how audiences were divided about this movie. And if you haven't seen it, I hope you give it a shot, as well as giving a shot to liking and subscribing. It's just fair. That's all, bye.